YouTube, Rook here from Rook Geek Goodness, my little channel web for all things geeky and cool, and welcome back to the channel, guys. Welcome back to their action figure review. Really excited to do this review with you guys because this figure is long overdue, and we're talking about, of course, the Lightning Collection, the very first figure that Hasbro brought out for Lightning Collection when they acquired the license for Power Rangers in 2019. But before I get ahead of myself, I want to thank all my viewers and subscribers who watch my content and still follow me on the YouTube platform now 5 years later. That's right, 5 years of doing YouTube. But if you're someone new, never watched any of my videos before, please give this video a like at the bottom of the page and click that all-important subscribe symbol. It'll help this video grow across the YouTube platform for people looking for this content can find it. So I mentioned we're talking about the Lightning Collection, the very first figure that Hasbro brought in the Power Rangers line when they acquired a license in 2019. I just haven't did any Power Ranger reviews, not because I didn't want to, I just haven't gotten around to doing them yet. I figured, you know what, why not do my very first one on the channel with all my viewers and subscribers, with you guys watching. Let me know what you think of this review, if I should do more of the Lightning Collection. I have a couple more figures in that particular series. I have not even unboxed this yet, so this is the very first impression video of this figure, and we're doing this in a full breakdown segment. Speaking of breakdown, the very first thing we do in a breakdown segment is look at the packaging and presentation. This again is the inaugural figure that the Lightning Collection was given by for Hasbro when they actually made the very first figure. This is how they presented it to the population, to the public. So let's take a look at the packaging here. This is basically your window box display box. You can see it nice on a peg. I even have the little tab still here at the very top. Really nice, kind of compact packaging, and we're going to compare this guy here when I get him out of packaging with the SH Figure Arts White Ranger. This is basically, my personal opinion, the gold standard of the action figures for the Power Rangers line. I'll compare the White Ranger one to this one and see if this figure really holds up. So let's talk about the packaging first. Again, really cool design. You have a nice little shot of the White Ranger helmet right here. This, of course, has the ability of having him both masked and unmasked. You can see the figure right there, the accessory, the additional head sculpt, which I do like that. The SH Figure Art one, which was this guy right here, didn't come that way. This was the Mark I version. I would say in about a few years later, they came out with the Mark II version, which you could remove his head. This version of the figure, this one here, you could not do that. This figure, you can do that. And just noticing the packaging here, really cool how Hasbro gave this kind of squat design, put everything in place. You can see almost everything on the card, with the exception of the blast effect, which is over here, which is kind of hidden by the side of the card. But really cool design. I like the way it looks here. It does have Lightning Collection right there. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers at the bottom. It does say White Ranger. A nice little side shot of what it looks like for the White Ranger. I like that right there. Again, similar artwork on the side here. It may be hard to notice, but you do have the White Ranger, the Mighty Morphin Power Ranger logo right here, kind of faded out. On the top here, just yellow. And the back of the packaging, we have a shot of what the character looks like off the card. Let's bring him around on a turntable so you can see him in 360. And let's get my personal first impressions of this figure in the packaging. Liked what they did with this one. Looks really, really cool. This is a much bigger packaging compared to the SH Figure Art one, which is this guy right here. That packaging was much smaller, but that's a little bit smaller figure compared to this figure here. I believe, and I could be incorrect here, I believe it's in the 6-inch scale. I think it is, but I like everything so far they presented with me on the card. Great design, great packaging, love everything what they did here. I do have a concern when I bring him out of the package momentarily about the outfit, and it'll make sense when I get him off the card, because if I compare him again to the gold standard, which is this one here, the SH Figure Arts version of just the costume, I have a concern, and that will make sense momentarily when we get him out of packaging. With that being said, let's get the White Ranger out of packaging. Alright guys, we have our Hasbro Lightning Collection Mighty Morphin Power Ranger White Ranger figure out of packaging. Next thing we do, take a figure out of packaging, is look at the paint, articulation, and accessories. So first impressions of this figure is, I'm very high on this figure. I like what they did, what Hasbro did with this figure. Very impressed for the very first time they've done an action figure for the Mighty Morphin Power Collection, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers rather, for the Lightning Collection. Very, very good job with this figure. Let's take a look at the figure first. Looks really, really good. About a 6-inch scale that I mentioned before. The Tiger Shield, which is this shield he has, this vest he wears, very similar to the Dragon Shield that the Green Ranger had, is made of a rubbery material. There is some quality control problems over here. I believe you can see it right here. Some paint like kind of wore off. Again, this is pulled right from packaging. I didn't really play with this figure a whole lot, but there's some quality control problems. You might have seen this on your figure as well. That's kind of a step back for me that I think they could have done better with the paint on this figure. Your mileage may vary. The head sculpt looks really good. It really looks like the the White Ranger. They did a great job on that head sculpt. Looks really, really good. Again, all things considered, great looking sculpt. He has a sheath right here on the side that he can put Saba, which is his Enchanted Sword, right here through there, which we'll talk about Saba shortly when we talk about the accessories. He comes with an extra set of interchangeable hands. He came with a sort of a straight hand like this, which I took off and just put a normal fist on. It looks a little better on camera that way. He has an open grip here, which we'll talk more about that hand momentarily. But all things considered, it looks really good. They did a great job with the White Ranger here. Of course, he's in a white outfit with black and gold deco. He has the white and black gold on the boots here, on the wrist guards, a little gold trim going across the top of the biceps and the biceps themselves. Again, this is a rubbery material. Does not hinder the articulation, which we'll talk about that shortly. But as far as the aesthetics of the character goes, I only have one real nitpick, and usually when you look at Power Ranger action figure toys, most of the time it's a skin-tight bodysuit. For example, again, we'll bring in the SH Figuarts one here, which again came from Japan before this figure even released, and this looks more like a bodysuit. Yes, there are some ripples you can see on the sides, and the buck is much smaller if you compare the two figures, which of course, that is to be expected. The SH Figuarts figure right here is much smaller in scale and scope than the Lightning Collection one, and we're taking that one off the table right now. I'm just comparing the way the suits look, comparatively speaking. Again, this is the gold standard. This is what all action figures for Power Rangers should attain to, is this character here, as far as articulation, design, scope, the way it moves, the way it feels, how the accessories look and feel and handle, and articulation on the character. And the biggest gripe I have is the costume. You can see the ripples on the costume. It doesn't look smooth like a bodysuit. It looks like someone's wearing a suit. Like you can see the cloth. That's my concern here. It looks like you're wearing a cloth suit as opposed to a skin-tight bodysuit like a superhero outfit. Of course, what Power Rangers have are skin-tight leotards. This doesn't feel like a skin-tight leotard. You can see like sort of the stitching is what I'm getting at. It looks a little bit weird. I'm not used to the way that looks. If you again compare the Lightning Collection here to the SH Figuarts one, you can see what I'm talking about, where it's rough on the costume and smooth on the legs. It's just an example of what I'm talking about. As you can see where I'm coming from. I'm comparing apples to apples here, guys. So you can see kind of where I'm getting at. But it just feels a little bit awkward, which I'm not used to a skin-tight bodysuit on characters, which I expect that. And I'm not getting a skin-tight outfit. Again, feels really, really weird. So let's break down the articulation of this figure. There's a load of articulation packed into the very first figure that Hasbro released for the Lightning Collection. Let's talk about the head first. Again, we talked about the head sculpt. Articulation, you got up and back. You got 360 with no hindrance. Very good there. Arms can go out to a T. Here's some clicky joints. I do like that. They can spin 360 on both arms with no hindrance. I do really, really like that. It sort of feels like a butterfly joint on this bicep here as I get the arm back into position. Kind of like they flare open and close. Feels sort of like a butterfly joint. I don't think it is, but kind of feels that way. Again, 360 on the arm, as we just mentioned before. Has a double jointed bicep right there. I do like that. Load of articulation, moves back and forward with no hindrance. You can spin it right here at that shoulder if you wanted to. You can spin it at the wrist and it does bend and click. Now, one big thing about the wrist we'll talk about shortly is when you take the hands off and on, there's a very, very long peg. Here's an example of how long these pegs are. And if you're not careful when you plug these pins in and out, you can bend these pegs. So be careful with the hands. We'll talk about that again momentarily. Now let's talk about the chest. Again, loads of articulation in the top of the figure. Let's talk about the chest of the figure. He can spin 360 at the waist, which I do like. There's a load of articulation in the chest. So again, tons of articulation in the chest. I like how much movement we have there. It's very, very cool. It's not clicky joints. You can feel it click, but it doesn't make a lot of ratchety sounds, which I do like. Again, we have a scabbard over here. We can put Saba in, which we'll talk about that shortly. Let's talk about the bottom of the figure, the legs of the character. So you can get a decent sized kick here, front. Back, you can't get the leg back here. That's a bit of a weakness for this figure. The leg will not go back far unless I bend the figure's other leg to get this leg back. That shouldn't happen here. So there's not a lot of back leg motion, which is okay. It's a hindrance, but I'm not super concerned with that. Now the leg itself here, you can spin it at the thigh. You have thigh cut here. I like that. Again, you can see how the suit meets up because there's a sort of a line that goes across the top of the suit right here. It might be hard to notice, but it matches up so you can get the leg in place. So you'll see it like match up here on the side. Like when you put the leg in place, you'll notice the leg, how it matches right here. You can see the line, the drawing, the texture meet up. That's what I'm talking about. Now, from there, you have a double jointed knee. You have 2 pins. You can see them here and here. It's not pinless. You get a very, very large range of motion in that leg. You can bring that leg really far back, as you see here. Loads of articulation. The leg will spin 360 at the ankle, and you have a boot rocker. So it goes 360 all around. I like that. No hindrance there. No toe cut. So there's no toe cut on this figure, unfortunately. That would be the only weakness I would see, at least for that portion of the figure. Now let's talk about accessories here. We talked all about the articulation here. It's loaded with articulation, and of course that articulation is on both sides of the figure. What you can do on the left side, you can do on the right side. Price point, I didn't mention it yet. I believe I got this guy for $20. Through the years, of course, it came out in 2019. I believe the price went up to about $24.99. So let's talk about the accessories for the White Ranger figure here. They gave us a few accessories which are pretty cool. This blast effect, noticing it when I was messing around with it earlier, I couldn't tell how to attach it to the actual character, where you put it in place. But if you look closely at the blast effect, there's a small channel right here, maybe hard to notice, right here that slides into the top of Saba. That's the only way that I've seen to attach the blast effect to the sword. I was looking through this going, how the heck do you attach it? And it does something like this. This is how you attach the blast effect, I believe, to Saba. You can do it in a couple different ways here, but it does post in place. I was kind of worried that you couldn't attach the blast effect to the character. I was looking through the blast effect. I couldn't find it. I had to even reshoot this piece because I think I couldn't put this in place until I looked closely, and in fact, you can do it. Now, this, of course, is a blue translucent piece of plastic. I have concerns with this sort of material that it can wear and tear over years, would fall apart, just break down. So it's not my favorite sort of material to use. It looks cool, but that would be the biggest concern I would have. Now, other accessories. Let's talk again. We have Saba here. Let's talk about Saba, his enchanted sword. The sword in the TV show would talk and fly, which is pretty cool. It looks really, really neat. If we compare this to the other one, the SH Figure Arts Saba here, they look very, very similar in design. You can tell the difference between the two. This is the SH Figure Arts one here. This is the Lightning collection. There's a little more deco on the SH Figure Arts, comparatively speaking, but very similar swords. I do like the way they both look. I'm happy that Hasbro made a good attempt at working with Saba, and it's good. A great amount of paint on it, good amount of deco on it. This one, of course, to put him in the SH Figure Arts hand, you have to break it apart in 2 pieces. While this one, you can just plug in place. Now, there is a concern I have with his hand, which we'll talk about shortly. Let's look at that head sculpt for Saba. It looks really good. They did a good job on Saba's head sculpt there. Looks great. I love the attention to detail and the deco on the top of the pommel for Saba. Looks really good. He did come with 2 pairs of closed hands. So we got this hand here, which is a standard fist. Hopefully you can see it okay. Right there we go. And it has, again, a long peg, which we talked about. Be careful of these pegs because you can break them or warp them. And it comes with a closed hand, which is what the figure came with out of packaging. It came with this closed hand. Again, be careful with this post because you can bend the post if you wanted to, if you're not careful with it. The head sculpt, of course, this is Tommy Oliver unmasked. They did a great job on that head sculpt. I like the head sculpt. Great attention to detail and deco, which will take the head off momentarily here so you can see what it looks like with him unmasked. Only because this head, when you take him off the joint, is extremely tight, and to put the head on is extremely tight as well. Let me put the head on and be back momentarily. And this is kind of what it looked like when you have the Tommy Oliver, the unmasked head on the buck. You can even have him hold the helmet, as you see right here. I just kind of dangled it under his arm just so it would hold in place. But he does look good with this being unmasked here. So let's take a look at the head sculpt with it on the figure. It looks really, really good. It looks like it fits in place. It doesn't look too bad. Again, there's articulation with this head work, just like the normal helmet that you saw before. I do like the way it looks here. Let's put the other head back on now and put the sword back in his hand. And we have the White Ranger with the Saba sword in his hand now, and again, helmeted back in place. Now, as I mentioned, one of the big problem I have is this hand right here. Because the hand is in such a gripped state, you have to unpry the hand apart to get the sword into his hand. It's more of a rubbery sort of hand, so it will flex back in place and keep the sword closed, or rather his hand grip closed. But that to me is a big problem, because I have to pry the hand open to get the sword to hold in his hand. They should have made the grip a little bit more relaxed, in my personal opinion, but it looks good with the sword. It looks like it fits the character. Everything looks good with it. I'm happy with the way they designed the Saba sword. It looks really, really good. Now let's take the Saba, again, out of his hand, and let's put it in his scabbard, because we haven't really shown that off yet. It does just peg, not even peg, just slides in place and holds really, really well. There's not a lot of movement on the scabbard. It looks really, really good. I like what they did with this. It looks like it fits with the character. It fits well with it. Again, this is Hasbro's very first attempt of doing the Lightning collection, their the newer line in 2019 for action figures. I think it looks really, really good, all things considered. Looks good, poses really, really well. I like what it looks like. Now, again, let's compare it to the SH Figure Arts here. Just again, if we're comparing apples to apples here, again, let's take the Saba off so you can see it just character for character here. Looks good. Again, this is the gold standard, and I keep coming back to that because the figure, in my personal opinion, action figures that are in the Power Rangers line should match up to this figure as far as looks, feel, aesthetics, articulation, accessory, posability, and just overall design, how they should look. And what made this one cool is that this was not a rubbery piece of material. The shoulder pads would go up here so it would not hinder any articulation. This one here, the Lightning Collection, doesn't do that because this is a rubber material, comparatively speaking. But again, very surprised, very surprised, all things considered, what Hasbro did with this figure. I didn't think the articulation would be nowhere near the level of articulation for this particular character. I think Hasbro really knocked this one out of the park. Alright guys, final thoughts on the Hasbro Power Ranger Lightning Collection White Ranger figure. I really like this figure. I think they did a great job, Hasbro did, for this figure. They came leaps and bounds what I thought it would be a fail when I first saw this on the packaging, on the pegs. It's a really, really good figure, all things considered, for a, wrapped up in a $20 price point. A little bit more money nowadays, but it's about 20 bucks when I bought it in 2019. Again, we have some quality control issues on the vest on the top right here. That's just a QA problem there. It could be picked and fixed at the factory. Again, rubbery vest here. But again, I mentioned before, all things considered, the SH Figure Arts, if you're looking to get a really good Power Ranger figure and spending a little bit more money, this guy's way more expensive. It's probably $100, $125 now. This one right here, the SH Figure Arts. This is, again, version 1, the unmasked version. Version 2 came out about 4 or 5 years after this one was released. That is the gold standard when it comes to Power Ranger figures, my personal opinion. No other company has hit Power Ranger figures in the look, feel, aesthetics, deco, accessories like SH Figure Arts did. The Lightning Collection, very, very close. I do like what they did with the Lightning Collection figure here. It's really, really good. Again, my nitpicks, my gripes about the bodysuit, where you can see the kind of ruffled in the clothing. It makes it look like a suit as opposed to a skin-tight bodysuit that you normally would wear, like a leotard. That's what I was expecting to see when I saw this figure, and it is a bit weird. Again, going back to the sort of the plasticky material, this rubbery blast effect, where you have the little notch that you put Saba in right here. I do think they could have repurposed this to something different, and I mentioned this in the video. I think they should have taken the money for this and given you a free floating stand for Saba. That's what I think they should have done with that money. So instead of giving you these energy effects, which is littered through the entire Lightning Collection, I think every figure has some type of lightning effect like this. That's their gimmick, I guess you would call it. But having a free-floating stand would have been cool as well. They could have repurposed these hands if they wanted to and have a free-floating, let's say a clear stand that would hold Saba like this. Because in the TV show, Saba's known to float around and shoot beams of energy out of his eyes. Having a free-floating stand that would go next to the figure could have been a cool effect too. Again, we have that weird blast effect that we talked about here. It has that little channel. It's even hard to notice how to plug it in place. You have to dig through it, and eventually you will find a little channel, but it will plug in place to Saba like that. Again, it's very, very weird. If you don't look for it, you may look to try to attach it, I mentioned in the video, and you couldn't figure out how to attach this blast effect. It is a bit weird, all things considered. Again, he does hold the sword really, really well. I think he holds the sword a little bit better than the SH Figure Arts one here, because you have to break the sword in half to stick it in the sheath. This one you just plug straight in. I think all in all, it's a really, really good figure. Going back to the last couple pieces of accessories, the head sculpt for Jason David Frank, they're using, I guess, the Artifacts technology here, the face face scan recognition, because it looks very much like Jason David Frank. They did a great job on this head sculpt. It's very, very well made and looks just like him. Again, all things considered, deco-wise, but it looks really good. It is really difficult to get the head on and off. You have to use a lot of pressure to put the head in place. And again, the last but not least, the pegs here. Again, be careful of these peg posts. You can bend these posts. They are very, very long, and they do have articulation. As you can see here, they do bend. So again, be careful with these posts. You can bend or break these posts. Over time, they may wear down, so please be careful. If you're not using your accessories, store them in a nice, cool place so you don't break them. And again, last but not least, really good figure when it came to articulation. Loaded with articulation. Surprise double jointed elbows, double jointed knees. Again, the leg wouldn't go back so far because the way this buck is cut in the back of the leg and near the butt, but all things considered, the very first figure that came out for Hasbro's Lightning collection, I'm pleasantly surprised with this figure, all things considered. I do hope you like this video review, again, of the Lightning collection. Figure number 1, the White Ranger from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Give this video a like at the bottom page. Click that subscribe button with a picture of my face. When you subscribe to the channel, click the bell, kind of be known for my latest videos. And of course, last but not least, and click windows over here to watch more of my content. Take care, guys. See you next video. And bye-bye.